we will be doing a follow-up video for the final relic pieces for Relic 6, 7, 8, and 9. And as always, stay awesome. All right, I think that was good enough. I should be able to get started on this next video here pretty soon, as long as I don't have any interruptions. Welcome back to the class, everyone. And yes, 2 weeks later, we are finally making the continuation of our previous Relic video, where we will be going into detail about Relics 6 through 9. Now, one of the things that is going to be fundamentally different about this video is it's going to be less focused on tips and tricks, and more so about pure efficiency within the guild store. So again, for those of you who joined us in our last video, you already know this, but for anyone who didn't, we went over the carbonite circuit board, bronzium wiring, chromium transistor, and rhodium heatsink in our previous video. And as I said, for pretty much every single one of them, there was some type of gimmick where you could get the Mark III holo projectors from the guild store and then craft them for great gains. You could get the Mark VII Blast Tech weapon mod pretty exclusively for chromium transistors, and so on and so forth. When it comes to the last 5 pieces in here, or rather 4 plus arrow magnifiers, which you can't craft for, we really can't rely that much on gimmicks and really have to go all out when it comes to efficiency, and specifically efficiency in the guild activity shipments. And there's 2 things you're going to notice as soon as we pull this up, where we can see all the materials, or rather all of the relic pieces. And number 1 is that they're actually all available in here. All 5 that we just mentioned are currently available on screen. The catch is, and this is important, all 3 of them require Mark III raid tokens to purchase. And this is problematic for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a lot of things to get with just 1 currency. And number 2, this is probably one of the most premium currencies we have in game right now, as it is constantly locked behind whatever raid is most recent. So it becomes a lot harder to catch up on, because every single time that you get your raid teams ready to go, it swaps. And again, there should eventually be some catch up in there, but it still makes these one of the harder materials to be able to go after. Now, obviously, the first thing you probably should be doing before jumping into acquiring more is burning off as possible what you can when it comes to the overall pieces. I will say that with the electriums, there is one kind of small hack you can do when you go to craft them, where you can involve the purple pieces that normally can't be included in here. So it is much better to typically craft the full item than to use just the normal salvage, because then again, you're allowing yourself to pull in some of the other purple pieces that can't normally be crafted as salvage. You'll see that I myself have actually pre-crafted all 4 of these, just so I kind of know where I am with the entire pieces, because I am still in the future going to need to apply these pieces to characters. So again, maybe don't burn down your entire horde, but find a number that you're comfortable with, so where you can still apply these to characters and still get the rest of these through the guild activity store. Now, where a lot of the numbers are going to eventually boil down to isn't just the fact that these are available for Mark III currency. What is ultimately going to boil down to is, while these are all available here in Mark III currency, some of them in a salvage way are actually available here in Mark II currency. And this is pivotal, because this is how we are going to get all of them at the same time without necessarily completely getting screwed by the overall bottleneck. So what I mean by that is, when we look at Zimbittles back in the crafting station, or whatever this is called, you see that you can use HoloLenses as well as the laptops and the thermal detonators here to salvage to get your next relic amplifier, your Zimbittle to be exact. So when we go back into the guild activity store, again, you can see we have Zimbittles here for Mark III currency. But when you keep going down, you'll notice that the holo projectors, or the HoloLens rather, are actually in here as well for Mark II currency. So one of the valid strategies, or probably the most valid strategy, to be able to get all 5 of these at the same time is to make a split. We have to make a decision. Which ones of these are we going to purchase with Mark III currency outright, and which ones are we going to purchase more salvage for with the complete and entire intention of making other relic pieces with. So with that, like I said towards the very beginning of the video, we have to pretty heavily rely on efficiency, and you all know, as this typically goes, it's going to lead us back to our spreadsheets. So what I've given you here, and you'll probably recognize this for those of you who watched the previous video where we did kind of a breakdown of the overall relic amplifier packs. You can see a version of one of them down here. I'm not really going to be recommending these specifically for these 4 pieces because we've already kind of talked about allocating crystals through crystal refreshes for the first 5 relic levels. And I realize most people out there don't just have a ton of crystals lying around, so you can purchase these if you wish. And for anyone who wanted to know, the pack on average is going to get you more than shipments going to. We have the associated drop rates, what they cost in shipments, and then also what the pack is going to give you overall. Again, I don't necessarily recommend that, but it is something worth noting that if you were going to spend crystals on any of these 4, you are better off waiting for the packs to come back. And again, they usually come back about once a month. Now, when we dip into the numbers, like I said we were going to, you will immediately see the comparison we have here between the Mark II and the Mark III currency. We put crystals in here as well, but again, we really already covered what those are going to be doing for the most part. Now, when we compare the Mark II to the Mark III currency, basically what we need to be looking for here is whatever number here is lowest on the ratio is going to be which ones we need to be buying with Mark II currency and then crafting. So the pretty obvious winners, and I've gone ahead and highlighted them here, are going to be the Zimbiddle and the Gerda laptops. So by focusing on those 2 with the salvage that we get with Mark II currency, that should free everything up for us to buy Electriums, arrow magnifiers, which can't be crafted at all, so they're kind of a moot point. They don't really get taken into the equation entirely, as well as impulse detectors with the Mark III currency. And this is important because what you're going to have to do ultimately is just end up keeping a much stronger eye out for those pieces that can actually craft both these Zimbiddles as well as Gerdas. Zimbiddles, we already showed them earlier, so the 3 of them are here. And then for the Gerda keypads, obviously we have the furnace, the stun gun, and the datapad piece that we need to keep our eyes at, again, in order to craft more of those. So going back into the guild activity, you're going to see here pretty clearly here, arrow magnifiers, impulse detectors, Electriums. Those are what we want to be buying with the Mark III currency. And then when it comes to getting salvage, HoloLens, very good target for the Zimbiddles. And then what is currently available in the store for me, I believe, is the, here it is, the furnace, which this is how I'm going to get more Gerda pads. Obviously, you will still have characters that need these, so you'll have to figure out a good way to splice it out. You'll have to pick and choose. Do you want to bring up more characters past gear 12 or rather gear 13? Or do you want to be taking them into higher relics? That does kind of create another bottleneck. One of the things that you can help to alleviate this problem is if you're kind of past the bronzium wiring bottleneck, like myself, you can start to go back to the fleet battles and start to allocate some of those resources back into the final relic pieces. One of the ones that I focus pretty heavily on is this HoloLens node. What I love about this HoloLens node is the HoloLens node obviously has HoloLenses. Well, I said that way too many times. So that you can go and craft more Zimbiddles. It also gives you 3 more pieces that can all be used to craft some of these smaller relic levels. When you do that, you can free up more of your Mark II currency going back to the guild activity store and buy more salvage for Gerdas. So you can kind of triage everything to work in your favor, buying the 3 pieces that we originally listed off with Mark III currency, allocating fleet energy to try to do as best you can when it comes to getting the Zimbiddle salvage, maybe just supplementing, and then finally using the rest of your Mark II currency to fill out the Gerda pads. We obviously didn't really talk about the other methods of getting them, like TW, because you can't really efficiency yourself out of that one. You either are in a guild that's winning a lot of TWs or you're not, or somewhere in the middle. We can't really buy something from a store to affect that overall. So that is going to be our video today. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. I think specifically this chart is probably the most valuable thing that we're looking at right now, just knowing where exactly to split our Mark II versus Mark III currency. So thank you all for watching. Until the next time, stay awesome.